Keanu Reeves walked down a quiet street in Los Angeles wearing his usual clothes. He didn't care about fashion. His boots were old, his jacket was faded, and a simple beanie covered his head. To most people, he looked like a regular guy, maybe. Even a man who had fallen on hard times. He looked tired but calm, peaceful but deep in thought. He wasn't walking into any store. He had a reason for coming to this one. The shop was a small, high-end clothing boutique. It was known for selling expensive jackets, suits, and shoes. Celebrities often came here, and rich customers loved the quiet, stylish atmosphere. But Keanu wasn't coming as a customer today, not really. Years ago, he had helped a close friend start this business. He had given money quietly, without putting his name on anything. He didn't want fame, attention, or even thanks. He only wanted his friend to succeed. Today, Keanu was walking into the store to visit and maybe buy something to support the business. He hadn't told anyone he was coming. No calls. No warning. Just his quiet footsteps on the sidewalk as he opened the glass door and stepped inside. A soft bell rang. The store smelled like clean leather and new fabric. Everything looked expensive. The lights were soft, the music calm. There were a few customers inside, all dressed well. But as Keanu walked in, something unexpected happened. A young woman behind the counter looked up. She was new to the job. She had just started working there 2 weeks ago. She had been told to be careful about people who looked out of place or might disturb customers. So when she saw Keanu, she didn't recognize him. She didn't see a famous actor or the quiet owner of the store. She only saw a man who looked poor. She walked quickly toward him, holding a polite but firm smile. "Excuse me, sir," she said kindly. "This store is by appointment only. We don't allow walk-ins." Keanu paused and looked at her. He didn't speak right away. There was no anger in his eyes. "Just calmness. I understand," he said softly, giving a small smile. "I didn't know." She nodded, trying to stay polite, but she didn't invite him to stay. She thought she was doing her job. Behind her, one of the customers stared at Keanu with wide eyes. A man whispered to his wife, "That's Keanu Reeves." But the young employee still didn't notice. She didn't turn around. She just stood there, trying to protect the store from someone she believed didn't belong. Keanu gave a small nod, turned around slowly, and walked back out the door. No drama, no big scene. He didn't say who he was. He didn't tell her the truth, that he was part owner of the store she was protecting. He didn't say, "Google my name." He didn't even raise his voice. Outside, a couple sitting on a nearby bench recognized him. "Wasn't that?" the man asked. "Yes," the woman answered. That was Keanu Reeves. They sat in silence, confused. Why had he walked out so quietly? Back inside, the young woman returned to the counter, feeling proud of herself for keeping the store safe. She didn't know what had just happened. She had turned away a man the store owed everything to. A man who had never wanted credit, but who had quietly made sure the boutique survived in its early days. But something strange began to happen. The other customers were acting different. A few left without buying anything. One woman looked at the employee with sadness in her eyes. Another man shook his head and mumbled, "People really don't see anymore." Later that afternoon, a manager returned from her lunch break. One of the customers stopped her and asked, "Why did you throw out Keanu Reeves?" The manager blinked in surprise. "What?" She didn't believe it at first. But when she checked the security camera footage, her heart sank. There was no mistaking it. That was Keanu, his quiet voice, his kind smile, his slow steps out the door. The manager put her hand over her mouth. The employee who had turned him away was still behind the counter, unaware of what she had done. The manager knew a conversation had to happen, not to scold, but to teach. And maybe, just maybe, there was still a way to make things right. But None of them could have guessed how Keanu would respond or what would happen next, because what looked like a mistake was about to turn into something beautiful, something that would change all of them forever. After the incident at the boutique, many people didn't know the full story behind the store or Keanu Reeves' connection to it. To most, it was just another fancy shop with expensive clothes and a strict dress code. But the truth was deeper and more personal than anyone guessed. Years before that quiet afternoon, Keanu had quietly helped a close friend who was a talented designer. The friend loved making clothes, but struggled to get attention in the competitive fashion world. Keanu saw the talent and wanted to help, but he didn't want any fame or credit. So he invested money behind the scenes, helping the designer open this boutique. He never asked for his name on the lease or the walls, and he never spoke about it publicly. It was a secret he kept because he believed helping should be about kindness, not recognition. The boutique slowly grew. The designer's unique style caught the eye of celebrities and wealthy clients. Soon, the store became popular in Los Angeles. But with success came changes. New employees were hired. The original small team grew into a larger company. New managers came and went. Unfortunately, no one told the new staff about Keanu's quiet role in making the store possible. For most workers, this was just a job, and Keanu Reeves was simply a famous actor they might hear about on the news, but not connected to this place. The young employee who had refused Keanu entry was just doing her job based on what she'd been told. She was trained to keep the store exclusive and protect its reputation. She never imagined that the man she turned away was someone so important behind the scenes. That evening, after the store closed, the manager watched the security footage to understand what had happened. She wanted to see if there was a problem with the employee or if a customer had caused trouble. As she reviewed the video, her eyes widened in shock. There, on the screen, was Keanu Reeves himself, quietly entering the boutique and then leaving when denied service. The realization hit her hard. Keanu was not only a famous actor, but also a hidden owner of the boutique. How could they have treated him that way? She felt a deep mix of embarrassment and regret. The next morning, she called the employee into her office. They talked about what had happened and the importance of knowing the store's history. The manager explained that kindness and respect should always come first, no matter who the person is or what they look like. Meanwhile, the story of the incident started to spread quietly. Some customers who recognized Keanu told friends. Employees began to talk among themselves about how easily someone can be judged by their appearance. The incident opened eyes in the boutique, sparking conversations about respect, kindness, and the dangers of quick judgments. Even the young employee began to question her actions. She wondered how she could have made such a mistake and what she could do to make amends. It was a difficult moment for her, but also a chance to grow and learn. For Keanu, none of this was about anger or blame. He never wanted to cause trouble. Instead, he saw the incident as an opportunity to teach others about kindness. He believed that people often judge too quickly, based on looks or assumptions, and that everyone deserves respect. The manager decided to reach out to Keanu to apologize. Personally, she hoped to find a way to heal the situation and maybe do something positive together. When they spoke, Keanu was calm and understanding. He told her that mistakes happen and that it was more important to focus on what they could do next to help others. This conversation marked a new beginning for the boutique. It wasn't just a store anymore. It was a place where kindness could shine. The manager and staff felt inspired to change the store's culture, making it welcoming to everyone, no matter who they were. What started as a small mistake had grown into something bigger. It showed how a single moment of misunderstanding could lead to greater awareness and compassion. And it all traced back to Keanu Reeves, a man who chose to respond with grace, not anger, and who quietly changed a store and the people in it forever. The next day, the manager of the boutique could not stop thinking about what had happened. She felt embarrassed and sad, knowing that Keanu Reeves, one of the quiet owners and a good friend to the original designer, had been turned away from the very shop he helped create. She wanted to make things right, not just for business, but because it was the right thing to do. She decided to reach out to Keanu personally. Using the contact information from old business records, she sent a message asking if he would meet her at the store. She hoped he would understand that the mistake was never out of disrespect, only out of not knowing the truth. Keanu answered politely, saying he would come by in the afternoon. The manager waited, feeling nervous. She worried he might be angry, or worse, disappointed in how his kindness had been forgotten by the new staff. She also knew she had to speak with the young employee who had refused him service. When Keanu arrived, he came alone, dressed just as simply as before. He walked into the boutique quietly, giving a gentle nod to the manager and the staff who were watching from a distance. There was no anger on his face, only his usual calm smile. Manager greeted him, apologizing right away. "I am so sorry for what happened yesterday," she said. "The employee didn't know who you were, and she was only trying to protect the store." Keanu listened patiently. He nodded, looking around the store that he had helped bring to life. The walls still had the same colors he chose with his friend. The clothes still had the same spirit of kindness and hope. He remembered the late nights, helping his friends set up displays and fix lights before the grand opening. This place meant something special to him, not because of money, but because it was built on friendship. The manager continued, "We want to make it right. You are always welcome here. Would you like us to arrange a small event in your honor, to thank you for everything you've done?" Keanu smiled and shook his head. "You don't need to do anything for me," he said softly. "Mistakes happen. Don't be hard on the employee. We all make mistakes. She was just doing her job." The manager was surprised. She had expected him to be upset, or at least ask for something in return. But Keanu was not interested in getting or making anyone feel bad. Instead, he wanted everyone to move forward with more understanding. The young employee stood nearby, watching. She felt nervous and ashamed. She hadn't known the man she turned away was such an important part of the store. Now seeing how kindly he spoke, she felt even worse for judging him so quickly. Keanu noticed her. He walked over and said gently, "Thank you for watching over the store. It's important to care for this place. Next time, just remember that sometimes people don't look like they belong, but they do." His words were not angry, but kind. The employee felt tears come to her eyes. She nodded, promising to remember. The manager, still wanting to do something meaningful, said, "Is there anything special you'd like us to do? Anything to show how grateful we are for your help?" Keanu thought for a moment. He looked at the staff, at the racks of clothes, and at the empty space in the middle of the store. Then he smiled. "I have an idea," he said. "Let's do something for people who never get to come here. Let's open the doors for one evening to the people in this city who need it the most. We can give out clothes and food and just let them feel special." The staff looked at each other, surprised and excited. No one had ever suggested something like this before. Usually, the store held events for celebrities and rich clients. This would be completely different. The manager nodded, feeling proud. "To have a partner like Keanu, that's a wonderful idea," she said. "We'll plan everything together." Keanu smiled again. "And let's not invite the press or take photos. This is just for them, not for show," everyone agreed. The young employee especially felt inspired. She wanted to help in any way she could, to show she had learned from her mistake. As Keanu left the store that afternoon, the whole staff watched him go. He didn't make a speech or ask for applause. He just gave a gentle wave and disappeared. Down the street, as quietly as he had come, the boutique felt different now. The staff felt hopeful. They realized kindness is not just about giving money or gifts, but about giving respect, second chances, and love. Keanu's calm and gentle response had changed something in all of them. Instead of a simple apology, he had given them a new way to look at their work and at the people who walked through their doors. In that moment, they all wanted to be better, kinder, and more welcoming. And it was all because Keanu had chosen to forgive, to teach, and to help, not with anger, but with a true heart. After Keanu suggested the kindness event at the boutique, the whole atmosphere inside the store changed. Staff felt a new energy. People who had only cared about sales and customers now began to talk about how they could help others. The idea was simple. For one night, the boutique would not be a place for the rich and famous, but a place for people who needed kindness most. Keanu's quiet wish was that no one should feel like they didn't belong, no matter how they looked or where they came from. The manager and staff got to work right away. They started making lists of what would be needed. Warm clothes, shoes, scarves, hats, and gloves were picked out from the best racks. They also planned to provide food, drinks, and even free haircuts for anyone who wanted them. Keanu offered to pay for everything himself, but the staff insisted on helping too. Some donated their own clothes. Others called friends and family to collect more warm jackets and shoes. The idea spread quickly, even though Keanu asked that there be no news cameras or social media. He wanted it to be real, not a show for the public. But even without any ads, word traveled fast among people who lived on the streets or stayed in local shelters. Flyers were printed and quietly shared in parks, at bus stops, and with the help of local volunteers. The young employee who had first turned Keanu away worked especially hard, passing out flyers after her shifts, asking people kindly if they would like a warm meal and new clothes. As the night of the event approached, everyone in the store was busy. Shelves were moved aside to make room for long tables. Racks of warm clothes were placed at the front with signs that said, "Take what you need, no questions." The kitchen in the back was turned into a place for making hot soup and sandwiches. Volunteers arrived, carrying bags of donated clothes, blankets, and toiletries. Everyone seemed to want to help, from regular customers to people who had just heard the story and wanted to do something good. Keanu was at the store every day before the event, helping with the work. He carried heavy boxes, helped set up tables, and even fixed a broken light fixture near the front door. Staff members were surprised to see a movie star working so hard, never asking for special treatment. He was the first to arrive and often the last to leave. The young employee, still feeling sorry for her mistake, followed his example and worked even harder. She stayed late, folding clothes, organizing shoes, and making sure the space felt welcoming. On the day of the event, there was a feeling of excitement mixed with nervousness. Would anyone come? Would people feel safe enough to walk inside a store that once felt closed to them? The doors were opened wide just before sunset. Soft music played inside, and the smell of hot soup and bread filled the air. At first, only a few people came. They stood at the doorway, unsure if this was truly for them. Keanu was the first to greet them. He smiled and shook their hands, leading them in and telling them, "Tonight, this is your store." More people arrived as word spread on the street that the event was real and safe. Some came alone, others came with friends. A mother brought her 2 children, wrapped in thin coats, and was moved to tears when staff handed her warm jackets and shoes for her kids. No one was judged for how they looked. No one was asked questions about where they came from. Some people just needed a meal. Others needed a friendly ear or a warm place to sit for a while. Keanu moved around the room, never acting like a celebrity. He served food, poured drinks, and helped people find the right size shoes. Some guests recognized him but were too shy to say anything. When one man did thank him for the help, Keanu just smiled and said, "We're all in this together." The young employee worked the coat rack, gently helping an older woman find a beautiful scarf. The woman's hands shook as she tied it around her neck. "This is the first new thing I've had in years," she whispered, eyes shining with happy tears. The employee smiled, feeling the sadness from her old mistake start to lift away. That night, she understood what Keanu meant. Every person deserved kindness, no matter how they looked when they came in. The manager watched the whole evening with pride. Staff members who once rushed through their days now took time to listen to stories, offer hugs, and bring people hot tea. Even after the food was gone and most of the clothes had been given away, people stayed to talk and laugh. Some danced slowly to the music, just happy to be warm and safe for a few hours. One man, who had been quiet all night, finally spoke up as he was leaving. "I never thought I'd be treated with respect in a place like this," he said. "Thank you for seeing me." His words touched everyone in the room. Keanu thanked the volunteers before he left, quietly handing out leftover food and promising to do more in the future. The young employee hugged him goodbye, saying, "Thank you for showing us how to care." Keanu shook his head, saying, "You did all of this. I just gave the idea." As the lights turned off that night, the boutique was changed forever. The walls and clothes were the same, but the feeling inside was different. It was not just a shop anymore, it was a place of hope. Staff members left tired but happy, knowing they had been part of something special. For Keanu, it was never about being a hero or getting attention. It was about treating people with dignity, about giving second chances, and about reminding everyone that a little kindness can change the world, one quiet night at a time. The night of the kindness event finally arrived. The whole boutique looked different than usual. There were no bright lights or fancy decorations for rich customers. Instead, there were simple tables filled with food and hot drinks. Racks of warm jackets, sweaters, and shoes stood near the front, each one waiting for someone in need. The smell of fresh soup and bread filled the air, making the store feel warm and safe even before anyone walked in. Keanu arrived early, wearing his old jacket and boots, just like always. He helped set up the last few chairs and checked that everything was ready. He smiled at the staff and volunteers, some of whom were still nervous about how the night would go. He told them, "Don't worry, just be kind and everything will be fine." Outside, the sky was turning dark and a small line of people started to form. Some of them looked tired and cold. Some were young, others old. There were women holding the hands of their children, men with backpacks, and people who had not spoken to anyone in days. At first, many seemed unsure if they should come. Inside, maybe feeling embarrassed or afraid that this event was not really for them. Keanu was the first to open the door. He greeted each guest with a warm smile, shaking hands and saying, "Welcome. Please come in." His gentle voice made people relax. Soon, more people started to enter, surprised by the kindness they saw on everyone's faces. Inside, the boutique was filled with soft music. The volunteers walked around, helping guests find food, drinks, and clothes that fit them well. Some people came just to have a hot meal. Others needed new shoes or a warm coat for the cold nights. Keanu didn't act like a famous actor. He carried trays of soup, filled water cups, and handed out bread like any other volunteer. A little girl holding her mother's hand looked up at Keanu and whispered, "Are you really giving these away?" Keanu smiled and nodded, handing her a red scarf. "It's all yours," he said. The girl hugged the scarf and ran to show her mother. Her mother wiped away happy tears, thankful that her daughter could feel warm and loved, at least for tonight. The young employee who once turned Keanu away worked harder than anyone else. She moved from table to table, helping people choose clothes and shoes. She smiled at everyone and made sure to say, "You look great," to each person who tried something new. She saw how a simple compliment or a warm bowl of soup could make someone feel special. There were small moments of kindness everywhere. A volunteer cut the hair of an older man who hadn't had a haircut in years. A young boy found a pair of shoes that fit him perfectly, laughing for the first time in weeks. Two sisters shared a bowl of soup, giggling at how good it tasted. People who were used to being ignored on the streets now felt welcome and respected. Keanu spent much of the night talking with guests. He listened to their stories, laughed with them, and even cried with some. One man told Keanu that he used to have a good job and a family, but he lost everything after getting sick. Now he lived on the streets and felt invisible most days. "Tonight," the man said, "I feel human again. Thank you." A woman carrying all her belongings in a shopping cart came in shivering from the cold. Keanu helped her pick out a thick coat, a hat, and gloves. He even knelt down to tie her new boots. The woman looked at him, her eyes wide, and whispered, "Thank you, sir." Keanu only smiled and said, "You don't have to call me, sir. We're all the same here." As the night went on, more people came. There was laughter and sometimes tears. Some guests did soft music, spinning slowly with their new clothes. Others sat quietly, just enjoying being inside and feeling safe. One older woman hugged every volunteer before she left, saying, "This is the kindest place I've ever been." Even people who didn't know Keanu's name or that he was a movie star felt his kindness. They could see he truly cared. He did not want thanks or fame. He was simply happy to help. The young employee watched Keanu carefully, learning something important with every small action he took. She saw that real kindness was not about being a hero or making a big show. It was about seeing people, really seeing them, and caring enough to help. At the end of the night, when the last bowl of soup had been served and the last jacket given away, Keanu stood at the door shaking hands with every guest as they left. Many people stopped to say thank you, but Keanu just smiled and said, "Take care of yourself." The staff and volunteers gathered together when the guests were gone. They were tired, but their hearts felt full. Some had tears in their eyes, and others could not stop smiling. The young employee, who had been so quick to judge before, felt changed inside. She looked at Keanu and said, "Thank you for teaching me what kindness really means." Keanu patted her on the shoulder. "You helped make tonight possible. You showed kindness too," he said. Everyone agreed that the event should not be just a one-time thing. They wanted to do more, to help more people, and to keep the feeling of warmth and welcome alive in the boutique. They knew the world would not change overnight, but they also knew that every act of kindness mattered. That night, as the store closed and the staff cleaned up, the boutique felt like a new place. It was no longer just a store for the rich. It was a home for kindness, a place where everyone was welcome. And it all began with one simple idea, one quiet night, and the gentle heart of Keanu Reeves. The next morning, the sun shone through the windows of the boutique, making the clothes glow with soft light. The kindness event was over, but something inside the shop had changed forever. The staff moved quietly, cleaning up the tables and folding the empty boxes, but everyone felt lighter. People smiled more. There was a new feeling of friendship in the air, as if the whole store was now one big family. The young employee who had once turned Keanu Reeves away was different too. She had worked hard all night, helping people, listening to their stories, and offering worn jackets and shoes with a smile. Now as she swept the floor and put things back in order, she thought about everything that had happened. The memory of her mistake, the day she judged Keanu by his looks, still made her feel embarrassed. But the feeling was softer now, changed by kindness and understanding. Keanu arrived later that morning. He carried a box of pastries for the staff and thanked everyone for their hard work. He did not come as a boss or a celebrity, but as a friend. Everyone gathered around him, sharing stories from the night before. Some told funny stories, like the boy who tried on every hat in the store and did a silly dance. Others spoke of Touching moments, like the mother who cried tears of happiness when her children were given warm coats. The young employee was quiet at first, but Keanu noticed her. He walked over and smiled, offering her a pastry. "How are you feeling today?" he asked gently. She looked at him, still a little shy, and said, "I want to thank you. Not just for last night, but for not making me feel small when I made a mistake. You didn't yell or tell me I was wrong. You just showed me how to be kind." Keanu nodded, his eyes kind. "We all make mistakes," he said softly. "The important thing is what we do next. Last night, you helped so many people. That's what matters now." Her eyes filled with tears, but this time they were happy ones. She realized that her mistake had helped her grow. Because of what happened, she now understood what real kindness looked like, not just a smile or a gift, but seeing people for who they are inside. As the day went on, the young employee felt a new sense of purpose. She wanted to do more than just sell clothes. She wanted to help people, to make them feel seen and important. She began to think of new ideas for the store, ways to keep the spirit of the kindness event alive. Maybe they could collect extra coats and shoes from the community. Maybe they could hold more events for people in need. She talked to the manager, sharing her ideas. The manager smiled and encouraged her, saying, "I think you're going to make a big difference here." Other staff members joined in, excited by the new direction the boutique was taking. It was no longer just a place for shopping, it was becoming a place of hope. As days passed, the young employee started a project called the Giving Rack. She placed a small rack near the door with a sign, "Take what you need, give what you can." Customers and staff began bringing in gently used clothes, scarves, and hats. People in need could come in quietly and take something warm, no questions asked. The staff welcomed everyone with a smile, just like they did on the night of the kindness event. Word spread quickly. More people from the community got involved. Some brought donations. Others volunteered to help. The store's regular customers loved the idea. They started coming not just to shop, but to support the project and talk about kindness. The store felt busier and happier than ever before. The young employee found herself becoming a leader. She organized clothing drives and invited local schools to help. She made sure everyone who walked into the store felt welcome, whether they were buying something or just needed a warm coat. Her coworkers noticed the change in her. She was happier, more confident, and always ready to help. One afternoon, a woman who had come to the kindness event returned to the store. She brought with her a bag of clean clothes to donate and a card for the staff. Inside she wrote, "Thank you for seeing me and making me feel special. I want to help others feel the same." The young employee read the card and smiled, feeling proud of how much had changed. The store became known in the neighborhood as the place where kindness lived. People told their friends, and soon other shops started to copy the idea, creating their own giving racks and kindness nights. What began as one mistake and one act of forgiveness had grown into something much bigger. Through it all, Keanu continued to visit the store, sometimes helping with donations, other times just listening and sharing a smile. He never wanted attention or thanks. He believed that kindness should be quiet and natural, just part of everyday life. The young employee never forgot his words, "You didn't see me, but now you see people. That's bigger." Now, when she thought about the mistake she had made, she felt grateful. Without that moment, she would never have learned how powerful kindness could be. She realized that everyone deserves a second chance, and that helping others is the best way to heal and grow. The boutique was no longer just a place to buy beautiful things. It was a place where anyone could come and feel special, no matter who they were or what they looked like. The young employee was proud to be part of something so important. She knew that as long as she and her coworkers continued to show kindness, the store would always be a place of hope, just as Keanu had dreamed. And all of it started because someone took a chance on kindness. forgave a mistake, and showed the power of seeing the good in every person. News of the kindness event at the boutique did not stay a secret for long, even though there were no cameras or reporters that night. The people who came, the ones who received a meal or a warm coat, told their friends and family. Some of them wrote about it online or shared the story with workers at shelters and churches. Soon, the story spread all over the city, and even people who had never visited the boutique knew something special had happened there. At first, the staff didn't realize how big the ripple would be. They were just happy that the event had gone well and that so many people had been helped. But within days, more and more people came to the store, not to buy expensive clothes, but to donate their own jackets, shoes, and blankets. Some customers stopped by just to thank the staff or to ask how they could help. The giving rack by the door filled up quickly and was emptied just as fast, as people who needed something would quietly take what they needed and leave a grateful note behind. Other store owners in the neighborhood heard about what happened. They started calling the boutique, asking for advice on how to hold their own kindness events. The manager was happy to help, sharing tips and ideas, and inviting them to visit. Soon, small shops and even some bigger stores in the city were planning their own events, serving food, giving away clothes, and welcoming people who were usually ignored. What started as a simple mistake and a single night of kindness began to turn into a quiet movement across the city. Shelters and charities reached out to the boutique, too. They offered to help with donations, and soon there were even more volunteers than the staff could manage. The young employee who once made the mistake was now leading teams of volunteers, teaching them how to treat every guest with respect and kindness. She felt proud, not just of her own change, but of the way her whole community was changing. Every day, she saw people helping each other, smiling, and making a difference. One small act at a time. One cold morning, a man who worked at another clothing store stopped by the boutique. He brought a bag of brand new socks and gloves and handed them to the young employee. "We heard what you did," he said. "We want to do the same thing at our shop next week. Would you come and help us?" The young employee smiled brightly and agreed. She knew how important it was to share what she had learned. When she visited the other shop, she saw that the kindness was spreading. Staff there greeted every guest with a smile, and the giving rack was already filled with winter coats. Soon, the kindness nights were happening all over the city. People began to talk about them with excitement and hope. Families who had struggled to make ends meet could find help without feeling embarrassed or judged. Children who were used to going to bed cold now had warm pajamas. Strangers who never spoke to each other before were now working together, sharing food and laughter. The media finally heard about the events. A local newspaper wrote an article about the boutique and its quiet hero, Keanu Reeves. But even then, Keanu refused to take credit. When a reporter tried to interview him, he said, "It wasn't me. It was everyone who helped." He wanted the focus to stay on kindness, not on his own name. More celebrities started visiting the boutique and other shops that joined the kindness movement. Some came just to help, while others wanted to see how they could bring the idea to their own communities. Even with all this attention, the staff at the boutique stayed humble. They continued to treat every person who walked through their doors with the same warmth and respect. Whether it was a movie star or a person in need, the young employee was now a leader, not just in the store, but in the whole kindness movement. She was invited to speak at schools and community centers about her experience. She always told the same story, that it all started with a mistake, but forgiveness and a second chance changed everything. She reminded people that kindness doesn't have to be big or loud. It just has to be real. As the months passed, the boutique became famous for something better than fashion. People said it was the shop where kindness lives. Local artists painted a mural on the outside wall, showing hands passing clothes, food, and warm smiles from one person to another. The boutique story inspired many people to look for small ways to help others every day. One evening, the young employee stood by the door, watching as families left the store with arms full of donated clothes. She remembered the day she first turned Keanu away, feeling ashamed and worried she would lose her job. Now she knew that mistake was the beginning of her own journey, a journey that had changed her life and touched so many others. Keanu visited often, always quiet, always ready to help. He still did not want attention, but everyone knew the truth. Without his idea and his kindness, none of this would have happened. He would walk through the store, shaking hands, serving food, and making sure that everyone was seen and valued. In the end, it was not about fame, money, or even the beautiful clothes in the boutique. It was about people. It was about giving, forgiving, and starting again. The ripple effect of one simple night showed that even the smallest act of kindness can grow into something huge, something that touches a whole city and maybe even the world. The story of the boutique's kindness movement became a legend, told and retold for years. And it always began the same way, with a gentle man, a small mistake, and the power of a single act of kindness to change everything. Months passed after that first special night at the boutique, but the spirit of kindness did not fade away. If anything, it grew even stronger. The store had become a symbol of hope, not just for people in need, but for everyone who wanted to believe that the world could be a gentler, better place. Even people who had never visited the shop felt inspired by the stories that spread from one person to another. The boutique staff held more kindness nights, sometimes twice a month, sometimes every week during the cold winter. Each time, more volunteers came, bringing new ideas and more donations. Some people brought homemade food, others made warm blankets, and many brought coats, shoes, and toys for children. The store always buzzed with excitement before an event. But the feeling was never about showing off or trying to get attention. It was about making people feel welcome and safe. Keanu continued to visit the store, but he always tried to blend in with the other volunteers. He helped with everything, setting up tables, handing out food, cleaning up after events. When people thanked him, he simply smiled and said, "We all help each other." He never gave interviews or let anyone film him. He wanted the kindness to stay pure and real, not become a story for the news. One evening, the manager decided to do something different. She invited everyone who had ever come to a kindness night, guests, volunteers, old staff, and friends, to a special celebration at the boutique. It was not a party for money or business, but a thank you for kindness itself. The shop was decorated with simple lights and paper hearts with kind messages written on them. There was no dress code. People came just as they were, wearing whatever made them comfortable. As people arrived, the room filled with happy voices and laughter. Some guests had found jobs and homes since the first kindness night. They returned not for clothes or food, but to help others, bringing their own small donations to share. Some of the volunteers who started as strangers were now close friends, meeting after work to plan new ways to help. The young employee, who had once made a mistake by judging Keanu, stood proudly by the door. She had become the boutique's outreach director, leading all the kindness projects. She greeted everyone, old and new, and thanked them for coming. She had learned that a simple act of kindness could change everything, not just one life, but many. As the evening went on, the manager asked everyone to gather for a few words. She stood in the middle of the room, looking at the crowd. She spoke about the journey of the boutique, about the day Keanu was turned away, and how that moment of misunderstanding became the seed for something beautiful. She told the truth, that the store was not built by one person alone, but by everyone who had ever given, forgiven, and helped another. When she finished speaking, there was a quiet moment in the room. People remembered their own struggles, mistakes, and moments when they needed kindness. Then someone started clapping. Soon, everyone joined in, not just for the manager, but for the spirit of kindness that now filled the room. Keanu was there, standing at the back as he always did. He clapped softly, his head bowed. He never wanted to be the center of attention, but tonight people noticed him. The manager looked at him and smiled, as if to say thank you without words. After the applause, people shared their stories. A woman told how she and her children got through the coldest winter because of the coats and food from the boutique. A man who had once felt invisible said, "Now I feel seen every day." A volunteer spoke about how the events made her less afraid to talk to strangers and more willing to help anyone who looked sad or lost. The young employee listened to each story, her heart full of pride and happiness. She thought about the journey she had taken, from a moment of judgment and embarrassment to a place of leadership and hope. She knew now that mistakes are not the end of the story. If you choose to learn and grow, they can become the beginning of something much bigger. As the night ended, people hugged each other, exchanged phone numbers, and promised to stay in touch. The boutique felt even more like a home than before, a place where anyone could walk in and be treated like family. In the days after the celebration, the boutique story continued to spread. Other cities started their own kindness nights. People who read about the boutique online wrote letters asking for advice on how to start similar projects. Some visitors traveled from far away just to see the place where kindness had become a way of life. The manager and staff always answered every message, reminding people that you don't need to be rich or famous to make a difference. All it takes is seeing someone as a person, not a problem. It takes patience, forgiveness, and the courage to begin again. Even after a mistake, Keanu's quiet leadership and gentle spirit remained at the heart of the boutique. He showed everyone that you don't have to be loud or important to change lives. All you need is the willingness to help, to listen, and to care. The legacy of that first kindness night lived on, not just in the walls of the boutique, but in every act of kindness that followed. For everyone who was part of the journey, it became clear: kindness does not end when the night is over. It grows, it travels, and it returns, changing the world one heart at a time. The boutique stood as a quiet reminder that even the smallest moment of understanding and care can start a wave of goodness. And all of it began with one mistake, one gentle response, and a choice to see the best in others. The story of Keanu and the boutique would be told for years, not as a tale of fame, but as a story of what kindness can do when people believe in it together.